All right, let's head long distance now. Take our show international. Congressman Thaddeus McCotter is in the Far East. He is going to be visiting South Korea and Taiwan. I believe he is in Taiwan right now. I didn't have time to pick up the phone before we began our conversation. We say good morning to Congressman Thaddeus McCotter.
And I say good evening to you, Frank. 12-hour time difference.
Yeah, that's true. It is a little bit late, 11 o'clock at night there. And are you in Taiwan?
Yeah, in Taipei, Taiwan. We're having a series of whirlwind meetings with the people ranging from the president to the foreign minister to the vice minister of defense. We're going to be meeting with the speaker of the parliament tomorrow and get a sense of the situation here. As you know, it's a very interesting part of the world these days.
Oh, indeed, especially with the tensions with China and Taiwan as the starting point for any conversation, I would think, over there.
Yes, and the president was he had his inaugural dinner last night, and he was very kind. We met with him and the vice president, President Ma, Vice President Chen, and that was one of the issues that came up. Obviously, the governing party at the present time has taken a policy of rapprochement and deterrence, whereby they set aside the obvious issue of sovereignty, which China is the legitimate China governance, but instead have tried to work on their common trade differences. Now, there are many at home and abroad that are very concerned about that, but as I explained to the president, it's very difficult for the United States to preach about the dangers of especially an economic rapprochement with China. We have so many in our own country that seem to think that is the way to deal with that nation.
Well, China, meantime, mainland China continues to invest over here. We've had stories about how they are buying up huge plots of property here in Michigan, Congressman McCotter, at around Milan, where they want to build a community. They've done that in Toledo, Ohio. They've done it in Idaho. We just got word they bought AMC theaters, for heaven's sake. That was announced this morning. So China is starting to use all this money that it's gained through the debt that we owe them and the manipulation of the yuan to expand. Are you concerned about any of this?
Well, I'm very concerned about this, Frank, and obviously we're seeing concern here in Taiwan, and I think that a lot of it is tacit. It's manifested in the fact that they're very concerned about the United States. There's a great irony here. The irony is that the more China uses its economic leverage and flexes its military muscle with many of the armaments it bought with our money, is you start to see that they recognize the United States as an indispensable partner. I mean, in Taiwan they always have, but it seems that it's even more pressing upon them now. The problem is that the United States can also be seen not only as indispensable, but as in decline as a Pacific power if we continue on our profligate domestic spending at home and try to retreat from our allies abroad.
And so that approach hopefully will down the road convince the Chinese to. But actually, the only impact we can have on them is the manipulation of their currency. Correct?
Well, I think that as we've talked about before, we can look at some of the overall predatory trade practices. Communist China, remains a mercantilist trade partner, and this is one of the problems in our relationship with them, is that we've done the whack-a-mole theory, where you try to trace one trade violation as opposed to treat them all as a comprehensive whole. And when you see the United States, in many ways, especially when we go over there and in the course of economic conversations start to downplay the role of human rights, as has been done in the past, you start to see a great concern amongst not only our own people, but amongst our allies over here.
Mm-hmm. When will you go to South Korea?
We'll be leaving after our meetings tomorrow, and we'll be going up, seeing our soldiers, being around the demilitarized zone, and I can't think of a better way to finish a trip than to meet with our troops over there who continue to prove that the United States military is a force for not only peace, but moral good in the world.
No, especially as you get closer to Memorial Day for that, too. Now, have you been there before to South Korea?
No, I've never been over to South Korea. I've never been to Asia, and I was given the chance to come. And as you know, especially with Korea, it's not only the strategic concerns that we have with North Korea, but we've also entered into a free trade agreement there. We want to make sure that it is a mutually reciprocal agreement, and we want to make sure that Michigan's manufacturing base, America's manufacturing base, will benefit from it rather than suffer, as we've seen from other trade agreements in the past.
What's the benefit to us, the U.S., from that free trade agreement?
Largely agriculture at this point. A lot of Michigan farmers are very supportive of a lot of agriculture throughout. We also saw that the UAW, ironically, and some of the other manufacturing entities, such as car companies, were very, very eager to try to get into that market because, as you know, one of the problems that we face as a manufacturing nation is not only currency valuation from places like Communist China and other Asian nations, it's barriers to entry that are put up, which make it very difficult for us to get our parts in, to get our cars in, and actually compete in those markets. And so they believe that this is a way to go forward.
Give me a flavor of what the car market is like over there. Is, for instance, in Taiwan.
Well, I can look out right now, and I can see a whole lot of German and Japanese vehicles.
And the smaller ones?
I'm not seeing a lot of ours, but I did go to the Chiang Kai-shek memorial and saw two of the Cadillacs that he used to drive around in, one which was a Fleetwood, which I'm sure was made right there in Detroit at the Fleetwood assembly plant.
That's good to see.
But I think that one of the things we have to do, though, is the more you break down barriers to getting your cars in, the more you have to competition. Obviously, maybe not in Taiwan, but in places like Korea and places like Japan. And then some of the predatory trade practices, you're going to see people buy American cars. And I think that that's one of the reasons that it had to be done. It's very hard to sell a car if you can't get entry into the market in a fair way.
Right, exactly. All right, other highlights so far from your trip? I heard some horns blowing in the background. What's nightlife like there?
Well, it's a very orderly city from what I see in Taipei. And the people are very kind, they're very nice, they're very friendly to the United States, they're very friendly to Americans, and they're very happy to have a congressional delegation come over. But in terms of the nightlife, I'm just standing outside so that you can get the sights, the sounds, and the smells of Taipei.
The smells are rather noticeable, are they?
No, it's just a beautiful city. There's a lot of trees, a lot of public spaces, and you see a very thriving city. And what you really see, too, Frank, is the mirror image of what can be a very peaceful, prosperous mainland, too, if they can get rid of the communist oppressive yoke. Because this is Chinese here in Taiwan that have come over, and they've continued the republic that was started by Sun Yat-sen. And they believe that they show a better way to go here for this continent and for the Chinese people, and I would agree with them. Yeah. And there's going to be one model of government for China over time. The question is whether it's communist and oppressive or whether it's the way that Taiwan is, democratic and free.
Well, thanks for checking in with us. Travel safely, and we'll chat after you get home again down the road.
All right, thanks, Frank.
Thanks for joining us. That's Congressman Thaddeus McCotter over there in Taipei and headed for South Korea as well.